They told me the $800,000 trust fund didn't exist. My own son looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, you must be imagining things." But I wasn't imagining it. I found it. And that discovery changed everything. My family, my peace, and my heart. Before I dive into what happened, let me ask you this. Where are you watching from? I'm here in sunny California, but I love hearing about my listeners all across the US and the world. Drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this story. It's one you won't forget. My name is Helen Miller and I'm 68 years old. For 42 years I was married to Robert Miller, a man who worked tirelessly to give us a good life. He wasn't flashy, he didn't buy new cars every year or take us on expensive vacations, but he was careful, smart with money, and always thinking about the future. When Robert died, it felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath me. We had built a life together, raised our son Michael, and weathered all the storms life threw at us. Suddenly, I was alone in our big house in Phoenix, surrounded by echoes of the past. I thought the hardest part of widowhood would be the loneliness. I was wrong. The hardest part was discovering how little I actually knew about what Robert had left behind. A week after the funeral, Michael and his wife, Sophie, came over. We sat in the living room, the curtains drawn against the Arizona sun. "Mom," Michael said gently, "Dad's finances are simple. The house, his savings, his retirement account. That's all." I nodded slowly, though something in my gut felt unsettled. "What about a trust fund?" I asked hesitantly. "I heard Robert once mention something about one years ago." Sophie's laugh was sharp, too quick. "Trust fund? Oh, Helen, you must be misremembering. Robert never had anything like that. If he did, don't you think we'd know?" Her words cut. Misremembering. As if grief had clouded my mind. But I knew Robert. He was meticulous, a planner to the bone. And I remembered one night, decades earlier, he had whispered, "Don't worry, Helen. One day if anything happens to me you'll be safe." I set something aside. At the time I thought he meant life insurance. Now I wasn't so sure. In the weeks that followed, Sophie stayed close. Too close. She helped with bills, organized my mail, even suggested I let her handle the paperwork, so I wouldn't get overwhelmed. First I was grateful. But slowly I noticed things disappearing from my desk. Envelopes missing. Folders moved. And each time I asked about it, Sophie smiled that thin smile of hers and said, "You must have misplaced it, Helen." One evening, while cleaning out the garage, I stumbled upon a dusty box labeled in Robert's handwriting, "Legal/important." My hands shook as I pulled it open. Inside were old insurance papers, property deeds. And then at the very bottom, a thin folder with the words, "Trust account, $800,000. My breath caught in my throat. I flipped it open and there it was. An account number, details of a trust Robert had set up years ago, long before his health declined. A trust fund. Thought. $800,000. Not a memory. Not my imagination. Robert had left me something Sophie and Michael never wanted me to find. I clutched the papers to my chest, tears streaming down my face. For the first time since Robert's death, I felt his presence, like he was reaching out from beyond the grave, whispering, "I didn't forget you, Helen. I made sure you'd be okay." But as quickly as the relief came, dread followed. If Sophie had been so eager to convince me it didn't exist, then she already knew. And if she knew, she wouldn't stop until it was hers. I didn't sleep that night. The folder with "Trust account, $800,000, sat on my nightstand, its presence heavier than stone. I kept reaching over, touching it, making sure it was still there, as if it might vanish the way Sophie had insisted it never existed. By morning I had made up my mind. I had to confront them. That evening Michael and Sophie arrived for dinner. Sophie bustled into the kitchen, her voice bright, almost too bright. "Let me help you, Helen," she said, taking the spoon from my hand. "You shouldn't strain yourself cooking. Just relax." Her smile was sweet, but her eyes flicked toward my purse, where the folder was carefully tucked away. Michael sat at the table, scrolling on his phone. His face looked drawn, tired. I cleared my throat. "I found something. Something of your father's." Michael looked up, curious. Sophie's hand froze mid-stir. I set the folder on the table, sliding it across. "Robert left a trust account. $800,000. You told me it didn't exist, Sophie. But it does." The silence was sharp, cutting. Michael reached for the folder, flipping it open. His brows furrowed. Mom, where did you find this? In the garage. In a box Robert labeled. Why did neither of you tell me about it? Sophie's smile vanished, her lips pressed tight. Because it's not yours, Helen. Her words dropped like stones. I blinked, stunned. Not mine. Robert set this up for me. I remember, he wanted me safe if anything happened. Sophie leaned across the table, her eyes cold. You're misremembering again. Robert created that trust for Michael. For his future. For our family. My hands trembled. That's not true. His handwriting, his notes, it says for Helen. Michael's face twisted with conflict, but Sophie's voice cut through like a blade. Think about it logically, she said. You're 68. How long do you think you'll really need that money? Michael and I have years ahead of us. A child to raise someday. Mortgages. The future. That trust belongs to us. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping. Robert left it for me. Don't you dare twist his intentions. Sophie's laugh was sharp, humorless. Intentions? Intentions don't matter, Helen. Paperwork does. Sign it over now and we can avoid a legal mess. Michael glanced at her, alarm flickering in his eyes. Sophie. But she cut him off. Don't be naive, Michael. If your mother insists on keeping this, she'll embarrass herself. Everyone already thinks she's forgetful, confused. Do you really want her dragged through court? The room spun. Court? You'd take me to court. Sophie's smile returned, polished and cruel. Only if you force me to. But really, it would be easier if you just trusted us. After all, we're family. For the first time I saw her clearly. Not as my son's wife, not as the woman who sat at my table, but as a predator circling her prey. Michael sat frozen, his hands gripping the folder, his eyes darting between us. I whispered, broken, Michael, this is your father's legacy. He wanted me cared for. Can't you see that? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His silence was worse than words. After they left, the house felt colder than ever. I locked the folder in my bedroom drawer, my heart pounding with fear. They knew I had it now. And Sophie wouldn't stop. I called Laura, the only person I trusted enough to confide in. Laura, I whispered into the phone, they want to take Robert's trust fund from me. They're saying I don't deserve it. Her voice was calm, steady as always. Then you fight, Helen. You don't give in. Bring me the papers tomorrow. We'll go through them together. Tears slipped down my cheeks. But Sophie said she'd take me to court. Let her try, Laura said firmly. She underestimates you. And she doesn't know me. That night I lay awake, clutching Robert's photograph. His steady eyes seemed to look right through me, urging me to stand tall. I whispered, I'll fight them, Robert. For you. For us. I won't let them erase me. But deep inside I knew the battle had only just begun. The next morning I arrived at Laura Briggs's office with the folder clutched tight against my chest. Laura had been Robert's friend for decades, a retired investigator with sharp eyes that could slice through lies. When she opened the door, her face softened. You look like you haven't slept in days, she said. I haven't, I admitted, handing her the folder. This is what Robert left. The trust fund. Sophie wants it. She says it isn't mine. Laura's jaw tightened as she motioned me to sit. She spread the papers across her desk, scanning line by line, her finger trailing over signatures, dates, and notarizations. For a long time, the only sound was the tick of her wall clock. Finally, she leaned back, her eyes narrowing. Helen, I don't like this. My stomach sank. What do you mean? Laura tapped one of the pages. This signature, supposedly yours. Did you sign this authorization? I leaned closer, heart pounding. The paper bore my name in careful script. But it wasn't mine. The strokes were too smooth, the letters too perfect. No, I whispered. That's not me. I never signed this. Laura nodded grimly. That's what I thought. This is forgery, Helen. Someone tried to transfer partial control of the trust to Michael. My chest tightened. Sophie, I breathed. It has to be her. He told me I was misremembering. She told me to hand everything over. And now this. Laura's voice sharpened. She's building a case to make you look incompetent. If she can convince the court you're unstable, this forged authorization will look like you were confused and signed it without realizing. I covered my mouth with my hands. She's trying to erase me. Laura reached across the desk, steadying my trembling fingers. Then we'll fight fire with fire. We'll gather evidence. Document everything she says, everything she does. If she's forging signatures, she'll slip up again. That afternoon back at the villa, I searched through the box from the garage again. Hidden among old insurance papers, I found a smaller envelope addressed to me in Robert's handwriting. My breath caught. I tore it open. Inside was a letter. Helen, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. Please know I never left you unprotected. The trust fund is for you, your security, your peace. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Tears blurred the page. Robert had known. He had anticipated this fight. I tucked the letter safely into my drawer, clutching it like a shield. 2 days later, the first blow landed. A letter arrived by certified mail, stamped with a lawyer's seal. Notice of concern regarding capacity, Evelyn Miller. My knees buckled as I read. Sophie had formally filed papers, claiming I was showing signs of cognitive decline, and recommending the court appoint Michael as trustee over the $800,000 fund. In other words, she wanted the law to strip me of my rights. I called Laura, my voice shaking. She's done it. She's trying to take me to court. Laura didn't miss a beat. Then we'll see her there. Bring Robert's letter. Bring every shred of paper we've got. If she wants war, she'll get it. That night, I sat alone in Robert's chair, the house too quiet, shadows heavy on the walls. George, I whispered, my hands clutching his photograph. They're calling me unstable. They want to steal what you left me. But I have your letter. I have the truth. I'll fight for us. The house creaked in reply, as if reminding me I wasn't entirely alone. But deep down, I knew Sophie wasn't finished. She was only getting started. The week after Sophie filed those papers, the world around me seemed to shift. At the market, I noticed neighbors whispering as I passed. Their eyes softened with pity, or worse, suspicion. She accused the cashier of shortchanging her. I heard she forgets where she is. Poor thing, maybe she really does need someone to look after her. Every word burned. I wanted to shout, I'm fine. I'm not crazy. But shouting would only prove Sophie right. On Sunday I went to church hoping for comfort. Instead I felt the sting of betrayal. My friend of 40 years, Marjorie, took my hand gently. Helen dear, Sophie told me you've been having episodes. Forgetting things. Getting upset. Her voice was cautious, like she was speaking to a child. I pulled my hand back, heat rising in my face. Marjorie, you've known me since we were young. Do you believe that? She hesitated. That hesitation broke me. I don't know what to believe anymore. She walked away, leaving me trembling in the pew, tears blurring the stained glass windows above. Back at the villa, Laura sat at the kitchen table with stacks of papers spread before her. She looked up, frowning at my tear-stained face. She's poisoning everyone, I said bitterly. Even Marjorie doesn't trust me. Laura's eyes hardened. That's exactly her plan. She can't win on facts, so she's trying to destroy your reputation. But courts don't rule on gossip. They rule on proof. I dropped into the chair opposite her. And do we have enough proof? Laura tapped the pile in front of her. We've got the forged authorization, notarized by her cousin. We've got Robert's handwritten letter, naming you as beneficiary. And we've got you, sharp, clear, not a hint of confusion. She leaned forward. But you have to hold steady in that courtroom, Helen. No matter what Sophie says, no matter how cruel. If you lose your temper, she wins. I nodded weakly. I'll try. That evening the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Sophie stood on the porch in a bright red dress, smiling sweetly. Hello, Helen, she cooed as if nothing had happened. May I come in? My jaw clenched. What do you want? Her smile widened. Just to give you one last chance to make this easy. Sign over control of the trust fund, and we can avoid dragging your name through the mud. I laughed bitterly. You've already dragged it. My friends look at me like I'm insane. That wasn't enough for you. Her voice dropped, low and sharp. If you fight me in court, I'll make sure everyone believes you're unstable. Every neighbor. Every judge. Even your own son. The words sliced through me. Michael. I whispered. She smirked. He'll do whatever I tell him. He's already agreed to testify. My knees nearly buckled. Think about it, Helen, she said, turning to leave. You're an old woman. Alone. Who will the court believe, you or your son and his wife? Her perfume lingered long after the door slammed behind her. That night I sat in Robert's chair, clutching his letter. My hands shook with rage and fear. "She's turning everyone against me, George," I whispered to the photograph on the mantel. "Even our boy. But I won't give in. I won't let her erase me." The house creaked as though answering, "Stand tall, Helen. Stand tall." The next morning, Laura arrived with a woman in a gray suit. "This is Dr. Patel," Laura explained. "A licensed psychiatrist. Independent. She'll evaluate you before the hearing." I stiffened. "Evaluate me?" Dr. Patel's smile was kind. "Don't worry, Mrs. Miller. My job is to show the court you're perfectly capable of managing your life. Sophie can spread all the rumors she wants. Facts will speak louder." For the first time in weeks, a flicker of hope warmed my chest. Maybe the truth wasn't as fragile as Sophie believed. The days leading up to the hearing felt endless. Every hour was heavy with dread. Everywhere I went, Sophie's whispers had already arrived before me. At the grocery store, two women stopped talking when I passed. At church, heads tilted with pity. Even the mailman looked at me differently, lingering a moment too long as if he'd heard the rumors. Sophie was winning the battle for perception. And I felt myself shrinking. One morning, Laura arrived with Dr. Patel for the official evaluation. I had been dreading it. "What if I stumble?" I whispered to Laura. "What if I forget a word or get flustered? They'll say it proves Sophie right." Laura clasped my hand firmly. "Helen, you've managed your household for decades. You know every bill, every detail of Robert's life. Sophie's lies can't erase that. Trust yourself." Dr. Patel smiled kindly as she set up her notes. "This isn't about perfection, Mrs. Miller. It's about clarity. Just answer honestly." The evaluation lasted hours. Dr. Patel asked me to recall words, solve small puzzles, and answer questions about my finances. "What bills do you pay each month? Can you explain how Robert structured his retirement accounts? Tell me about your daily routine." First, my hands trembled. But soon the rhythm steadied me. I remembered the numbers, the account details, the dates of insurance policies. I even laughed once, realizing how deeply I knew the minutiae of my life. When it was over, Dr. Patel put her pen down and smiled warmly. "You're sharper than half my younger clients," she said. "I'll write a full report, but let me tell you now, you are perfectly capable. Sophie's claim won't hold water." Relief flooded me so strongly that tears slipped down my cheeks. For the first time in weeks, I believed I wasn't just surviving. I was standing. But Sophie wasn't slowing down. That very afternoon, a courier delivered another envelope to my door. Inside was a glossy booklet from a PR firm, an actual press release Sophie had circulated. Read: "Concerned family seeks legal protection for ailing widow. Miller family acts with compassion to protect Helen Miller's estate from potential mismanagement." They were painting themselves as heroes. And me as a fragile old woman incapable of thought. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the paper. Laura read it, her jaw tightening. "She's staging this like a performance. But in court, drama doesn't win. Evidence does." I stared at the paper. But what about Daniel? He hasn't called me in days. What if he really testifies against me? Laura's expression softened. "Then he testifies. But remember, Sophie's script only works if you crumble. Hold steady and her lies will collapse." That night I dreamed of Robert. He stood in our garden, the roses blooming behind him, his hand extended. "Don't let them bury you alive, Helen," he whispered. "Stand tall." I woke with tears on my face, clutching his letter from the garage. His words became my anchor. "The trust fund is for you." 2 days before the hearing, Daniel finally came to the villa. His face was pale, eyes shadowed. "Mom," he said quietly, "Jessica, she wants me to testify. Says you're not well. That you're paranoid. If I don't support her, she'll..." His voice cracked. "She'll leave me." My heart twisted. "And what about me, Daniel? What about your father's wishes? He built this trust for me. You know he did." He couldn't meet my eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore. I reached for his hand, desperate. "Believe what you saw with your own eyes. Believe in me. I'm your mother." But after a long silence, he pulled away. "I can't." And then he was gone. Laura found me later, still trembling. "He's scared," she said gently. But fear doesn't change facts. Sophie may control him, but she doesn't control the truth. I nodded slowly, gripping Robert's letter. The hearing was coming. Sophie thought she had already won. But this time I wasn't walking in as a victim. I was walking in as Evelyn Miller, Robert's wife, Daniel's mother, the woman who refused to disappear. And I would not be erased. The courthouse smelled faintly of varnish and old paper, like a place where lives were measured in signatures and stamps. I sat stiffly at the respondent's table beside Laura, my palms damp against the wood. Across the aisle, Sophie glowed like a queen, dressed in cream silk with her hair twisted in a perfect bun. Michael sat beside her, shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the table. Behind them, Sophie's family filled the benches, whispering, nodding, their presence a wall of silent judgment. When the judge entered, the room hushed. This court is now in session. In the matter of Miller versus Miller, petition for conservatorship. My heart pounded. Sophie's lawyer rose first. His voice was smooth, rehearsed. Your Honor, this case is about compassion. My clients, Michael and Sophie Miller, only want to protect Michael's aging mother. Mrs. Helen Miller has been struggling since her husband's passing. She's misplaced important documents, accused family of theft, and exhibited paranoia. He paused dramatically, looking right at me. Left unchecked, she risks mismanaging her estate, including an $800,000 trust. My clients ask this court to grant conservatorship, not to punish Mrs. Miller, but to safeguard her well-being. A sympathetic murmur ran through the room. I wanted to stand and shout lies. Every word is a lie. But Laura's hand pressed firmly against mine under the table. Steady, her eyes told me. Then it was Laura's turn. She stood slowly, her presence calm but commanding. Your Honor, this is not about protection. It is about control. My client, Mrs. Helen Miller, is competent, lucid, and fully capable of managing her affairs. The petitioners, on the other hand, have presented forged documents and engaged in deceit to seize her late husband's legacy. Her voice sharpened. We will prove this court is being manipulated by greed, not concern. The judge's face gave nothing away, but she nodded. Proceed. Sophie was called first. She walked to the stand with practiced grace, clutching a tissue as though tears might fall at any moment. Helen is like a mother to me, she said, her voice trembling. But since Robert's death, she's changed. She forgets conversations, she misplaces things, she lashes out. We just want her to be safe. Her eyes filled with tears on cue. She dabbed delicately with her tissue. It broke my heart, she added, when she accused me of forging her signature. I would never betray her. Behind her, her family nodded solemnly. The room seemed to lean toward her, caught in her performance. Then Laura rose for cross-examination. Mrs. Miller, do you recognize this authorization form? She held up the forged document. Sophie nodded quickly. Yes. Helen signed that. Are you certain? Laura asked evenly. Of course. I was there. Laura stepped closer, her tone sharpening. Interesting. Because your cousin notarized it. And we have her notary log. The signature was entered on a day Helen was in Flagstaff, miles away from this bank. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Sophie's face flickered, just for a second before the mask returned. You must be mistaken. Laura's smile was cool. We'll let the handwriting expert speak to that. She turned back to the judge. No further questions. Next came Dr. Patel. Calm, steady, she took the stand. I personally evaluated Mrs. Miller, she said. Her memory, reasoning, and financial judgment are intact. She is fully capable of managing her estate. I found no signs of cognitive decline. The judge scribbled notes, her brows knitting slightly. Sophie's lawyer tried to discredit her. Doctor, surely stress can mask deeper issues? Dr. Patel didn't flinch. Stress does not forge signatures. Fraud does. The courtroom went still. By the time we adjourned for lunch, the tide had shifted. Sophie still smiled, but her grip on Michael's arm was tight, her knuckles white. Laura leaned close to me. We're not finished yet. But we cracked her story. Did you see her face when I mentioned the notary log? I nodded, my hands still trembling. For a moment, I thought she'd lose control. Laura's eyes gleamed. And she will. People like Sophie always do. That night, back at the villa, I sat with Robert's letter under the lamplight. His words glowed on the page. The trust fund is for you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I whispered into the quiet. I didn't let them erase me today, George. Not yet. But deep down I knew Sophie wasn't finished. And neither was I. After the first hearing, the whispers in town grew louder. At the grocery store, 2 women spoke just loud enough for me to hear. Poor thing doesn't even know she's being manipulated. Did you hear? She accused her daughter-in-law of forgery. Tragic. I walked past them, chin lifted, but inside my chest felt hollow. Sophie's poison was spreading fast. The next morning I found a folded newspaper on my doorstep. On the front page, widow's mental state questioned in $800,000 trust dispute. The article quoted family sources, who said I was forgetful, paranoid, unable to manage finances. I didn't need to guess who had fed them those lies. Laura read over my shoulder, her jaw tightening. She's running a PR campaign, Helen. Don't bite. If you lash out, she wins. I gripped the paper, my hands trembling. But everyone believes her. Not everyone, Laura said firmly. The judge doesn't care what's in the paper. Remember that. That evening Michael came to the villa. He looked worn, his eyes dark-rimmed. Mom, he began, his voice hesitant. Jessica, she wants me to testify next week. She says if I don't, I'm betraying her. Betraying my family. My heart sank. Your family? Michael, I am your family. I gave birth to you. Your father raised you. This house is your home. His face twisted with conflict. I know, but Jessica says you're confused. That you think people are out to get you. She says it's best if I tell the judge what I've seen. What you've seen. I snapped, my voice breaking. What have you seen, Michael? Me paying bills on time? Me cooking dinner? Me remembering every single detail of your father's life? What exactly makes me unstable? He flinched. I don't want to do this, Mom. But if I don't, Jessica says she'll leave me. Tears filled my eyes. And you'd sacrifice me to keep her? He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. When he left, I collapsed into Robert's chair, clutching his photo. George, I whispered, our boy is lost. She's got him in her claws. What do I do? The house gave no answer, only the quiet creak of old wood. 2 days later, Laura uncovered another lead. She arrived at the villa, excitement in her eyes. I talked to a contact at the bank, she said. Remember that authorization form Sophie tried to use? There was a teller present when it was submitted. His name is Samuel Diaz. He remembers Jessica's exact words. My breath caught. What did she say? Laura smiled grimly. He says she told Michael, don't worry. She'll never know the difference. The words hit me like thunder. Proof. Real proof. Laura leaned closer. He's willing to testify. That's the kind of witness who cracks a case wide open. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in my chest. But Sophie wasn't slowing down. The very next night she showed up at my door, her smile sharp as glass. Well, Helen, she said sweetly, I hear you're digging around. It's cute. But it won't matter. Michael is with me. He'll say whatever I need him to say. The court will believe him over you. I stared at her, fury burning in my veins. One day, Sophie, the lies will choke you. Her smile widened. Maybe. But until then, I'll be drinking champagne in your villa. She turned on her heel and left, her laughter echoing down the driveway. That night, I sat with Laura at the kitchen table. She's tightening the noose, I whispered. And Michael's going to help her do it. Laura's voice was steady. Then we hit back harder. With Samuel, with Robert's letter, with Dr. Patel's evaluation. He thinks she's playing a game. But we'll show the court it's fraud. I nodded slowly, gripping Robert's letter. My hands still trembled, but for the first time I felt steel in my spine. Sophie thought she was breaking me. But all she was doing was sharpening my resolve. The second hearing drew an even larger crowd. Reporters filled the benches, their cameras flashing like lightning. The air buzzed with anticipation. Sophie entered in a tailored black suit, her chin high, her arm looped tightly through Michael's. He looked pale, drained, but she walked as if she already owned the courtroom. Laura leaned toward me. Today we bring Samuel. This is where her story begins to crack. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the bailiff call the session to order. Samuel Diaz took the stand. He was a quiet man in his late 40s with a calm presence that steadied the room. After swearing the oath, Laura approached. Mr. Diaz, please tell the court what you witnessed on April 14th at Pacific Trust Bank. Samuel opened his small leather notebook. His voice was firm. Jessica Parker and Michael Miller came in with an authorization form. Daniel, he nodded toward Michael, looked nervous. He asked if it was the right form. Jessica told him, "Don't worry. She'll never know the difference." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Samuel turned a page. "I wrote it down that same day. Here are my notes." The notebook was passed to the judge, who examined the entry closely. Laura's voice was calm but sharp. "So to be clear, Jessica Parker acknowledged in your presence that Mrs. Miller would not be aware of the form being filed?" "Yes," Samuel said. "That's exactly what she said." Sophie's lawyer shot up. "Objection. This is fabricated." The judge raised her hand. "The witness has contemporaneous written notes." Objection overruled. Laura stepped back. No further questions. It was Sophie's turn. She stood slowly, her smile tight, her voice trembling with feigned outrage. "You're lying," she snapped at Samuel. "You're twisting my words. Why would I ever say something like that?" Samuel didn't flinch. "Because I heard you." Her voice rose. "You're working with Helen. She paid you to come here." The judge's gavel slammed. "Order." But Sophie's composure was unraveling. She turned toward the courtroom, her eyes wild. "She's manipulating all of you. Helen's confused, she's unstable. She doesn't even know what's real anymore." The words hung in the air, sharp and desperate. Reporters captured every second. Her mask of the caring daughter-in-law was gone. Michael sat frozen, his face ashen. He stared at Sophie, horror dawning in his eyes. "Jessica," he whispered, barely audible. She turned on him, hissing, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare take her side." But the damage was done. Everyone had heard her rage. When the judge called a recess, Laura guided me out of the courtroom. My knees were weak, but my heart felt lighter than it had in months. "You did it," I whispered to Samuel as we passed. "You told the truth." He nodded, his expression steady. It was the right thing to do. Outside in the hallway, Michael approached me. His eyes were red, his voice shaking. "Mom, I didn't know. I thought." His words trailed off, guilt thick in his throat. I touched his arm, tears welling. "You thought she loved you. I know. But now you've seen who she really is." He swallowed hard, his hands trembling. "I don't know what to do." I squeezed his arm gently. "Do the right thing, Michael. It's not too late." But before he could answer, Sophie stormed out of the courtroom, her heels clicking like gunshots. She grabbed Michael's arm, pulling him away from me. "We're not finished," she hissed, glaring at me with venom in her eyes. And just like that, she dragged him down the hall, her grip iron tight. Laura exhaled, her lips curling into a grim smile. She showed her true face today. The judge saw it. The jury saw it. And Michael, she glanced at me. Michael saw it too. I clutched Robert's letter close to my heart. For the first time, victory felt possible. But victory would not come without a cost. The final day of testimony felt heavier than all the others combined. I sat at the respondents' table, clutching Robert's letter inside my jacket pocket. My lifeline. Across the aisle, Sophie leaned close to Michael, whispering furiously in his ear. His face was pale, sweat beading at his temples. Laura leaned toward me. "She's cornered. Expect something desperate today." My stomach knotted. Desperate people were dangerous. The judge called the session to order. Sophie's lawyer stood. His voice carried a new urgency. "Your Honor, before closing statements, the petitioners wish to present one final piece of evidence. A letter allegedly written by Robert Miller, leaving explicit instructions that the trust fund was intended for Michael, not his widow." Gasps filled the courtroom. The lawyer held up a sheet of paper, Robert's familiar handwriting flowing across it. I froze. Could it be? Had Robert written another letter? My fingers trembled as I clutched the real letter hidden in my jacket. Laura rose calmly. "Your Honor, may we examine the document?" The bailiff handed it over. Laura scanned the page, her brow furrowing. He passed it to me. The signature looked like Robert's. The phrasing sounded like him, almost. But something was off. The date was recent, too recent. "This isn't real," I whispered, my throat dry. Laura rose. Your Honor, this document is a forgery. Robert Miller died 6 months before this date. We can produce his death certificate. The judge's brows rose. Is this true? Sophie's lawyer sputtered, flipping through his papers. My client insists. But Laura cut him off. If the petitioners knowingly submitted forged evidence, it demonstrates a pattern of fraud. The room buzzed, reporters scribbling furiously. Sophie's face flushed crimson. She leapt to her feet, pointing at me. She's lying. That letter is real. Robert wanted Michael to have the money, he told us himself. The judge's gavel slammed. Order. But Sophie's voice only rose. You think she's some saint? She's not. She's senile, paranoid, she can't even cook without burning food. Her mask was gone. Her voice cracked with desperation, every word dripping venom. And then came the blow that nearly broke me. Michael, she hissed, spinning toward him. Tell them your father meant the trust for you. The courtroom went silent. All eyes turned to Michael. He sat frozen, his face pale, his hands gripping the edge of the table. His lips trembled as if the words were caught inside him. Michael, Sophie pressed, her tone sharp as a knife. Say it, or you'll regret it. He looked at me then, his eyes full of torment. For the first time I saw my little boy again, not the man twisted by Sophie's control. His voice cracked. I don't know anymore. His head dropped into his hands. He couldn't do it. He couldn't lie for her. Laura rose smoothly. Your Honor, this farce has gone on long enough. We have affidavits, medical evaluations, and multiple witnesses confirming Helen Miller's competency. We have testimony proving forgery. And now we've seen the petitioners present false evidence to this very court. This is not protection. This is exploitation. Her words hung in the air like a bell tolling. The judge's eyes lingered on me. Mrs. Miller, would you like to make a statement before we recess for deliberation? My throat tightened. Slowly I rose, my knees shaking but my voice steady. Yes, Your Honor. I turned toward the bench, then toward the jury. My husband and I built our life together brick by brick, dollar by dollar. He made sacrifices so I would be safe when he was gone. That trust fund wasn't just money, it was his promise. I may be old. I may be alone. But I am not invisible. And I will not be erased by lies, even when they come from my own family. My voice broke, but I pressed on. I am Evelyn Miller, Robert's wife, Daniel's mother. And I know the truth. The courtroom was silent, every ear straining to catch my words. I sat down, my heart pounding. The judge struck her gavel once. The court will recess. A ruling will be issued shortly. The courtroom filled again after the recess, tension thick as fog. Everyone knew the decision was coming. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, Robert's letter pressed against my chest beneath my jacket. Felt like he was there, steadying me. Laura sat beside me, calm and focused. Across the aisle, Sophie shifted restlessly, her face pale beneath her perfect makeup. Michael sat next to her, eyes downcast, his shoulders hunched as if the weight of the world pressed on him. The bailiff's voice rang out, "All rise." The judge entered, her black robes flowing, her face unreadable. We all sat again, hearts pounding. This court has reviewed the testimony, the exhibits, and the credibility of all parties, the judge began. Her voice was firm, every word echoing in the silence. Based on the medical evaluation, the corroborated testimony of Mr. Diaz, and evidence of fraudulent documentation, the petition for conservatorship is hereby denied. The room erupted, gasps, whispers, the click of reporters' pens. The judge raised her gavel for silence. Furthermore, this court refers the matter of forged documents and false testimony for criminal investigation against Mrs. Jessica Parker. Mrs. Helen Miller remains the sole beneficiary and trustee of the $800,000 trust fund established by her late husband. Her gavel struck once, final and unshakable. Relief surged through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. Laura squeezed my hand, whispering, "It's over, Helen. You won." But across the aisle, Sophie shot to her feet, her voice shrill. "No. This isn't right. She's confused, she's crazy. You can't just hand her all that money." The bailiffs moved in as she shrieked, her polished mask gone. "You'll regret this, Helen. You'll regret the day you crossed me." Her screams echoed down the hall as she was dragged from the courtroom, her words dissolving into chaos. Michael remained slumped in his chair. Slowly he lifted his face. His eyes were red, wet with tears. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't know it would go this far. I didn't mean to," his voice cracked. "I don't deserve you." Tears stung my eyes. "Michael, you're my son. I'll always love you. But love doesn't mean I'll let you destroy me." He buried his face in his hands, shaking with quiet sobs. For the first time I saw him not as my betrayer, but as a broken man caught in the wreckage Sophie left behind. Outside, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed, voices shouted. "Mrs. Miller, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you forgive your son? What will happen to Jessica now?" Laura raised a hand, shielding me. "No comment at this time." But I didn't need to speak. The truth was already written across the courtroom's walls. That night I returned to the villa. The air smelled of roses from Robert's garden. The sun was setting, bathing the house in gold. I walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, the photographs, the furniture Robert and I had chosen together. It was mine again. Secure. Safe. And yet, the victory was bittersweet. I stood at the mantel holding Robert's photo. "We did it, George. We won. They couldn't erase me." My voice broke. "But I lost him. I lost our boy." The silence answered with only the hum of the night. Later, Laura sat with me on the porch. "You stood tall, Helen. You fought back and you won. That matters." I nodded slowly. "Yes. But the cost." My voice trailed off. She touched my hand gently. "Sometimes justice comes with heartbreak. But you still have your dignity. You still have your name. And that's something no one can take." I gazed at the garden, tears slipping down my cheeks. Jessica was gone. The trust fund was mine. My home was safe. But the echo of my son's broken sobs lingered in my ears. I had saved everything Robert left me, except the one thing I wanted most. The days after the verdict passed in a blur. For the first time in months, I woke without dread pressing on my chest. The trust fund was safe. The villa was mine. No more court dates, no more lawyers pounding on my door with papers stamped in red. And yet peace did not feel the way I imagined. It was quiet, too quiet. At the grocery store, people stared again, but this time the whispers were different. "That poor woman. Imagine your own family doing that to you. She was right all along. Sophie's the one who lied. She's stronger than I ever thought." Marjorie, my old friend who once doubted me, approached me with eyes brimming. "Helen," she said, her voice breaking. "I owe you an apology. I listened to Sophie. I believed her lies. But I saw the truth in court. I should have trusted you." Tears pricked my eyes. "We all want to believe the best of people," I whispered. "Even me. Especially me." She hugged me tightly. For the first time in weeks, I felt the warmth of friendship again. Back at the villa, letters arrived in the mail. Neighbors sending kind words, church friends offering casseroles, strangers writing after reading about the case in the paper. "You reminded us all that older women aren't invisible," one letter said. "Your strength gave me courage to stand up to my own family," wrote another. Each note was a balm. Yet when I placed them on the kitchen counter, the space across the table still felt unbearably empty. One evening, Laura came by with a bottle of wine. We sat on the porch as the California sky blazed pink and gold. "You're free now," she said softly, pouring into our glasses. "Jessica's under investigation. She'll face the consequences. And you," she smiled, "you get to live your life on your own terms." I nodded slowly. "Yes. But I lost Michael." Laura's smile faded. She didn't offer platitudes. She just let me speak. "He hasn't called since the verdict. Not once. I keep wondering if I should reach out, but..." My voice cracked. What would I say? "I forgive you. Come home." Would he even want to? Laura reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Love is complicated. Maybe time will bring him back. Maybe not. But either way, you stood up for yourself. You kept Robert's promise." That night, I walked through the villa slowly, touching the walls, the photographs, the furniture Robert and I had chosen decades ago. In the study, I opened the drawer where Robert's letter still rested. I read it again, every word etched into my heart. "The trust fund is for you. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I didn't, Robert," I whispered. I held on. Even when it broke me. The garden called me then, the roses Robert planted glowing in the moonlight. I knelt in the soil, pressing my hands against the earth. I realized something in that quiet moment. The fight had taken so much. My trust, my peace, my son. But it had also given me something I hadn't expected. A voice. For years I had been just Robert's wife, just Michael's mother. Now I was Helen Miller, woman who stood against betrayal, who proved she was not to be erased. The night air was cool as I whispered into the roses, "I'll be okay, George. I don't know how yet, but I will." The petals swayed gently in the breeze as if answering. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed it. Weeks passed after the trial. The headlines faded, the reporters moved on, and the town settled back into its quiet rhythm. But for me, nothing felt the same. Every corner of the villa carried echoes. Robert's laughter in the kitchen, Michael's footsteps on the stairs, Sophie's voice dripping with poison in the living room. Sometimes at night, I woke expecting Robert beside me, his steady breath in the dark. Instead, I found only silence. Victory had come. But peace was still learning its way back to me. One afternoon, Marjorie stopped by with tea and lemon cake. We sat in the garden, the roses swaying in the warm breeze. "You know, Helen," she said gently, "you've become something of an example. People at church keep saying how strong you were. How you stood up when most would have broken." I smiled faintly. Strong? I don't feel strong. I feel tight. Like the ground shifted beneath me and I'm still learning how to walk. Marjorie touched my hand. Maybe strength doesn't always feel like strength. Maybe it's just refusing to fall even when everything pushes you down. Her words lingered long after she left. I began volunteering at the library downtown, reading to children in the afternoons. Their laughter filled spaces in me I hadn't realized were empty. Some days I helped women at the senior center with paperwork, guiding them through the tangle of forms and accounts. "Don't sign anything without reading it twice," I'd warn. They nodded, eyes wide, as if my story had already reached them. It felt good, using the pain I'd endured to shield someone else from the same. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I found Michael's old baseball glove in his childhood room. I sat on his bed, holding it to my chest, breathing in the faint scent of leather and dust. Tears blurred my eyes. "Oh, Michael," I whispered, "if only you'd seen sooner. If only you'd remembered who you were before she twisted you." There was no knock at the door. No phone call. Just silence. And yet I prayed. Not for reconciliation. I no longer knew if that was possible. But for him. For the little boy who once ran across this lawn with laughter bubbling from his lips. I prayed that somewhere, someday, he'd find his way back to himself. That night, I returned to Robert's study. His photograph sat on the desk, his steady eyes meeting mine. "I kept your promise, George," I whispered. "I defended what you left me. I protected the life we built. But it cost me more than I ever imagined." For a moment, I thought I felt his presence. Warm, steady, proud. The roses outside stirred in the evening breeze, their scent drifting through the open window. I straightened my shoulders. "I can't bring you back. I can't fix what's broken with Michael. But I can live. And I will. For you. For me." As the moon rose, I walked through the villa one last time that evening. Each room no longer felt like a battlefield, but a sanctuary reclaimed. I wasn't just a widow clutching at memories. I wasn't just a mother mourning a son lost to greed. I was Helen Miller. And though my heart ached, though tears still fell, I carried with me something no one could ever steal: dignity. The kind that outlasts betrayal. The kind that shines even in the darkest nights. The kind Robert had always seen in me. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I had everything I wanted, but because I still had myself. That would be enough.